wanted you to know that when he was living his life and chasing after the world, he wanted to make as much money as he possibly could. He wanted to bag every big game trophy that there was to bag in North America, which he has succeeded in doing. Nothing that he set out to put on his wall has eluded him. And he also wanted to set power lifting records that would never be broken. And I'm not sure if he's powerlifting anymore, but I kind of looked around the room and I would bet on him on any arm wrestling contest we might have today. Without further ado, please welcome Ray Howell-Kicking Bear.
Thank you, Brother Keith. Boy, what a wonderful drive over here today. Beautiful day. I mean, November. I got up in the tree stand this morning early, and the sun's coming up. It's just beautiful out, and I can't believe I didn't have layers of clothing on. But the deer weren't moving this morning. So, yeah. I got to travel here today with my wife, and what a blessing it is to spend time with her. I wanted to share with you with what has gone on in my life and what God had planned and where it started and where I'm at today and what I'm doing behind this podium. When I was 5 years old, I had the greatest dad and the most incredible mom in the world. You know, my dad was so fun that when he came home from work every day, we'd be standing at the window, me and my brothers and sisters, waiting for him to pull in the driveway. And when he pulled in, I'll tell you what, it was game on. As soon as he hit that door, I mean, he was throwing us around, we're dragging on his feet and just having a blast with him. Dad was fun. And you know, on weekends when he didn't have to work, he had this old four-wheeler. He'd take us out in that jalopy and drive around the backwoods, bouncing around and laughing and just fun. I remember one time we got stuck in the mud so bad that truck would not move. And I'll tell you, as a little kid, you know, it's scary, not knowing if you're going to be able to get home or not. And you're out in the woods, out in the middle of nowhere. But, you know, my dad was the hero. He got us home to Mom. Everything was fun. It was joyful being a kid. And one day when I was at home, my mom and dad were talking in the hallway, and I came around the corner and I heard my dad say something to my mom that really hit me hard. He said, "I'm leaving." And when he said that, I knew in my heart he was telling the truth. So I went out the front door and I hid up into the back seat of my dad's car as far as I could go, because he's not going without me. And I'm hiding. And it wasn't very long. The back door opens up, and here he is. And they grabbed me by the feet, and they pulled me out, and pulled me on the ground. And I am kicking and screaming at the top of my lungs, "Dad, don't go. Don't go without me." And they're holding me down on the ground. And my dad is a different person. He isn't the fun guy he normally is. He gets into the car, and the door slams, and out the driveway it goes, and down the road it goes. And I'll tell you what a terrible day. And you know, things really changed after that day. The bad part about it was my brothers and sisters and I too, we stood at the window every day waiting for Dad to come back home. He never come back home. So our lives took a whole different turn. It was like a black cloud. It was not joy anymore. It was no fun. My mom was, I can't say she was depressed, but she was lost. She didn't know what was going on, didn't know what direction to go. And you know, a month or so went by, and I remember going up to the door, there's somebody knocking at the door. I go up to the door, and here's this great big tall guy standing there, and a little lady, she's about half his size. And it's my grandpa. I have to meet my grandpa, and he comes in, and this guy is a great guy, and he says, "Well," he says, "I'm taking all your kids and your mom, you're going to move back home with us." My grandpa packed us up and moved us from Flint, Michigan to La Crosse, Wisconsin. And we lived in he was an awesome man. We lived in a two-bedroom home with my brothers and sisters, my mom, and I'll tell you what, there was a family structure. My grandpa was the leader of the home, and he was awesome. And I'll tell you what, he actually even took time with me just to introduced me to his friends, and this is my grandson. And boy, I'll tell you what, that really made me feel good. He bought me my first bicycle, a Swin bicycle. I can remember to this day. He bought me a bike, and he brought one for my brothers and sisters. And I got to go fishing, and I got to do a lot of neat things. And school was going along pretty good, and everything was pretty much normal. So one day, I knew my grandpa was sick. I didn't know how sick he was, but my mom and my grandma sat us down and said, your grandpa's got crawling stomach cancer, and it's not getting any better. Well, you know, my grandpa is a big, tough man. There ain't nothing going to knock him down. He might be a little sick, but he's going to get out of this. And you know, that's kind of how I felt about it. But it wasn't very long. My grandpa was really sick, and he wasn't getting out of bed very much, and he kept losing weight. He kept shrinking and shrinking down and shrinking down. And one day I went home, and he was at the hospital. So when I got home from school, I used to go to the hospital to visit my grandpa, still thinking everything is going to come out fine. He's going to get better. Remember the day I went to the hospital with my grandpa, they wouldn't let me in the room because my grandpa had passed away. And I'll tell you what another dark cloud. My grandma and my mom both, you know, the leadership in the home was gone. And there was confusion and money problems and all these different things that had come up, and there was no time for the kids. There was problems, distractions. And so, you know, with me, as things were going forward, I was having different troubles because I didn't have a man in my life. And you know what it was like being a kid when you went out for sports and you played basketball or you wrestled. Wrestling was a tough individual sport. And you failed, and you got teased, and you didn't feel like you wanted to do it anymore, and you didn't have anybody put their hand on your back and say, hey, son, or grandson, I tell you what, don't worry, we fell today, but we're going to get at it tomorrow, and we're going to do better. You didn't have it on your back. And you know what it was like to have bullies at school picking on you just because you're you? That happened. I can remember getting the ever-living daylights beat out of me for no reason whatsoever. And it happened a couple times. And you know, it got to the point where going to school wasn't fun. I actually hated going to school because of the troubles that there was. So I started hanging around with other kids that had the same kind of problems as me. Those kids that you see on the corners that were smoking cigarettes or not showing up at school and different things, I started hanging around with them. As a matter of fact, it was kind of a deal to protect yourself from other people that were bullying you. But what ends up happening was I started skipping school, started hanging around with them at night, and next thing you know, one thing led to another, and you were drinking and carrying on, and man, I wasn't going to school at all, and I wasn't going home at all, and I was camping out on sandbars, partying and having a great time. And I'll tell you what, it's all out there, girls and drinking and fun. And I remember driving down the back roads of Onalaska, Wisconsin in a Chevy convertible, and I looked at the speedometer, and it said 110 miles an hour. I'll tell you what, we were flying. We were having a blast. I mean, there was just no end to it. And I went home one day to see my mom. I loved my mom very much, and my grandma. But I went home to see my mom, and it was just coincidence or what, but there was some strange people in the house. When I walked in there, it was real quiet. My brothers and sisters were sitting at the table, and this big guy looks at me real intimidating, and he says, Ray, sit down. I said, well, who are you? And I'll tell you what, I sat down. I didn't realize it, but I no longer had my freedom. He says, Ray, you and your brothers and sisters are out of control, and because of you not listening to your mom and your grandma, we have a new home for you. I said, what? And just like that, they walked me out to the car. My brothers and sisters went in one car, and I went in the other, and we went two different ways. They drove me to a home in Wisconsin, which was a farm. And we drove in there, and there was 5 other boys there, and they were all in trouble just like I was. And this was a work farm. I'll tell you what, I got up in the morning, I milked cows, I went to school smelling like a cow, and I came back and I milked cows and did chores. That was my daily routine. And I couldn't go out for sports, I couldn't do anything except what they were telling me to do. And it was like being in a prison. From the time he said sit down, I no longer had any control of my life. There was no bars or barbed wire or walls, but I couldn't get out of what I was into. And it wasn't my fault. I just didn't have a man in my life at the point that I needed one. And this is bad. And I'll tell you, I hated it so bad. I hated my life because of what was going on. That one day when the school bus pulled up to the school, everybody got off the bus, everybody went in through the big doors. I went to the left and I left. I went back down with my friends. I skipped school that day and I ran away. I went back down with my friends, and I'll tell you what, everything got back to normal. I'll tell you what, we were partying and having a good time, and you know, about a week or so went by, and you know, I got picked up by the police. The next thing you know, they take me to jail, and they told me, said, for truancy, you got 3 days off of school. Your 3 days are going to be spent here in jail. Wow. So they threw me in jail for 3 days. I'm just a kid. So get back into the car, take me back to the foster home, and I'm working away and same routine all the time, and I'm going to tell you what, it got worse and worse and worse. I remember the 5th time I ran away. I went back home to see my mom, and I walked in and said hello and gave her a big hug, and you know, she was the only thing in my life now. She was the only thing that I felt even cared about me. And I went in and talked to her for a few minutes, and I'm heading back to the beach over there by my friends and stuff. You know, it wasn't 5 minutes, and the police showed up, and they picked me up. I couldn't believe it. I'm in the squad car again, and I'm heading back to jail. I thought, what in the world happened? How did they get me picked up so quick? And then it hit me. It hit me that my mom called the police. And I'll tell you what, at that point in my life was really, really a terrible point, because now I had nobody. I absolutely had nobody. I'm going back to the worst situation I've ever been in, and something I absolutely hated. You know, people talked about suicide or having things where they don't want to be a part of something. It's not that they want to do this, it's because they have so much pain in their life that they don't want to be a part of it anymore. And that's really where I was at. I can't say that I was contemplating suicide, but I didn't want to live the life that I was living, and I did not care about what was going to happen going forward. I wasn't going to be imprisoned in this life. So I'm back in jail, and I remember that night, I am so upset because all this is going through my head. I have absolutely nobody that cares about me. I remember crying, and I knelt down on the concrete floor up against a steel bed, and I prayed to a God I didn't know. I said, God, would you please put somebody in my life that no matter what happens will never leave me? And you know, it was just wishful thinking. Because in 3 days' time, that door is going to open up and that walk of nightmare is going to be there, and he's going to say, come on, Ray, I got to take you back home. And for those 3 days of sitting in jail waiting for that to happen, and a young man not caring about what his next step is going to be or what's going to happen in his life, it was absolutely terrible. I wanted to get out of them walls of jail, and I didn't want to be in prison no more. And I remember the 3rd morning getting up. You know, jail has got the worst tasting cornflakes and the worst coffee ever tasted. I remember getting up that morning thinking about that he's coming to pick me up. But I had a plan now. My plan was no longer going back to that foster home because I didn't care anymore. When his car got to the first stop sign that I felt comfortable that I could take off running, I'm jumping out of that car and I am going to run, and I'm not going to stop running. I'm no longer going to go down by my friends where they could pick me up and find me anymore. I'm leaving, and I'm going to go to the big cities where nobody could find me. And you know something? That's a nightmare, because when you get into a situation like that where you don't know what your next day is going to be, or where you're going to sleep, or what you're going to eat, but you really don't care, that's where I was at. And I'll tell you what, I was sitting on a table. It's a steel table. It looks like a picnic bench, and that's where you ate your breakfast. And there's some magazines sitting there, and I remember waiting for the probation officer to come. And here there's a magazine on the table. It's a hunting magazine. I opened this magazine up, and I'll tell you what, just like that, I was taken out of the garbage I was in. I'm looking at this magazine and reading stuff, and there's pictures of moose and bear and elk. And I mean, man, do people really get to hunt these animals? Are these animals really around? Is Africa and Alaska and Canada, is it real? And just like that, that door opened up, and bang, there he is. and says the exact words I knew he was going to say. Come on, Ray, I got to take you back home. I'm going to tell you, walking out that door, following that man that day was the lowest of lows. Because I'm getting in the car, and I can tell you right now, I didn't say a word to him. He probably knew right off the bat that there was something really different about me, because I'm going to run. I get in the car, and we're going down the road, and I'll tell you what, I am looking for the stop sign. That's all I had in my mind. And this probation officer says to me, he says, Ray, he said, I seen you reading a hunting magazine. He says, I'll tell you what, you promise me that you won't run away from this foster home again. I'm going to find you a better place to live. And he says, I'm going to take you hunting with me and my sons. And I'm going to tell you what, he said just the right words. Maybe because I was scared to death of what I was going to do, but maybe not. I looked at him and said, yeah, I promise you. I would like to go hunting. And he says, okay. So he takes you back home. And you know, you don't know if it's going to happen or not. But I had a dream now. I had a dream that I was going to get to go hunting. I woke up every morning, milked cows, went to school, smelled like a cow, and come home. But I had that dream. I was almost like I was out of this imprisoned life. And no kidding, one day my foster mother walked up and said, Ray, Tom called, he's coming on Friday, he's going to pick you up and he's going to take you hunting with him and his sons. And I'll tell you what, you could have probably just about heard me scream, are you kidding, this is really going to happen? You know, I want you to know on that Friday when Tom came to pick me up, Tom Pokey was different than everybody else. Everybody who ever told me they were going to do something with me with hunting or fishing and didn't show up, Tom showed up. This man stepped out of his everyday life to help the kid for no reason other than to help the kid. And I'll tell you, he pulls up to the farm there and his boys are in the car. Come on, Ray. I mean, I'll tell you, they acted like I was part of their family. They get in the car, we drive to Black River Falls, and he's got a cabin out in the middle of nowhere. And I'll tell you, we're out there, we're shooting bows and playing games and talking about hunting. There was a bonfire that night, stuff that I just could not, it was dreams that were really happening. And you know, that night, they set the alarm clock for 4:30 in the morning. And I'll tell you what, I did not sleep a wink. I remember I was up all night, I was ready to roll. This is it, man. And I remember the alarm clock going off. I heard it go off. And Tom's door on his room opens up and bang, the door hits the side of the wall. Come on, we got to go out to the lake. And out the door he runs and his sons take off with him. They're laughing. I thought, what in the world's going? They ran right off the dock and jumped into the lake out there. It's dark outside, it's cold out, and these guys are jumping in the lake. Come on, Ray, come on, it's tradition, you got to jump in here with us. You guys are nuts, I ain't jumping in that cold water. But you know, it wasn't very long, and I jumped in that water. And I'll tell you what, at that point was a point where I really felt like I was part of that family. And I'll tell you what a weekend. What an incredible weekend. We were out there, and I remember seeing my first white-tailed deer in the woods with a bow in my hand. And here comes this doe, and it's coming at me. I had buck fever so bad, I was shook up so bad, I don't even remember what happened. I could probably even jumped underneath a brush pile or something. It was unbelievable seeing this deer. I was hooked, and I was hooked forever. But one of the most important things that had happened was on the way home to that foster home. He says to me, he says, Ray, he says, you're going to be 18 years old soon. He said, when you turn 18, you get to have your own family, you can have your own job and make your own money, and you can go hunting. And I want you all to know at this point, God has given us the spirit-inspired warrior who is our military. And if it wasn't for their sacrifice, I would have not been able to chase my dreams like Tom told me that I could chase my dreams. And for all my brothers who are in this room here that have sacrificed and I kept this so we can have the freedom that we got, I love each and every one of you. And what an awesome thing. So I turned 18 years old. And it's like somebody let the cat out of the bag. I get married 1 month after I turn 18. I'm working 2 jobs and going to school. And I got to go hunting. This is unbelievable. Everything Tom is telling me is coming true. And I tell you, I remember at the age of 19 years old, everything you want is right there. Just work hard at it. And at the age of 19 years old, God blessed me with a little baby girl, and we named her Danielle. This little baby, I got to be a dad. And when she was born, I said to myself, I said, I'm going to give her everything. I'm going to give her everything that I didn't have. I'm going to be her dad. And you know, I made that promise to myself. And I was so proud to be a dad. Well, that same year, in the wintertime, I was bow hunting. These deer come through, and this doe gave me just the right shot, and I made a perfect hit on this deer, and I harvested my first deer with a bow. And I want to tell you something. I was so proud of that deer, I stuck it on the back of my car, and I drove around for a week with that deer back in my car. I mean, I'm living a dream. And so, as things are going forward, I'm 23 years old, and I'm working hard. And I just, even though I was making good money, it seemed like I couldn't keep ends met. I now have 5 children. They're popping out left and right. I don't know what's happening. But I'm blessed. I mean, I'm a dad, and I get to have a family, something I never had. So I made a decision one day because of my grandfather. You know, my grandfather owned a welding shop at one time, and he was the biggest influence in my life. I had become a welder because of my grandfather. I made a decision to quit the job that I was doing, and I was going to go into business for myself. And I did do that. I remember the day I made that decision. And I want all of you, each one of you, to know that we are Americans and we can chase our dreams, and if we make that decision, we can do that. But it's also the fear of failure that made me succeed. It was a fear of not putting food on the table for my children that made me work so hard. There was no 40 hours a week. It was whatever it took to succeed. And you know, it was interesting, as hard as I was working at it, the business started to grow, and I had a few employees. And one day, Tom Polke shows up in my shop. This is the man who mentored me, that took me hunting. Shows up in my shop and he says, Ray, I get a kid by the name of Brian. He's in a lot of trouble. And unless we can get him a mentor in his life, he's going to end up at St. Mike's. And when he said St. Mike's to me, that hit me pretty hard. My brother Dan, I didn't see him after I had gone to the foster homes. He went to St. Mike's. And I want you all to know that my brother Dan went down a totally different path than I went down, and it was bad. The enemy beat up on him good. As a matter of fact, to this day, the things that happened to him when he was a kid are still with him. So when he said St. Mike's to me, I said, man, I don't want that kid to go to St. Mike's. And I got thinking about it that night. Tom, the guy that mentored me to change my life, thinks that I could help another kid. So I said, okay, bring him over. So he brings this Brian. And he walks over. This kid's only this big. He's just 14 years old, just a short little kid. I thought, man, how could that kid be in that kind of trouble? This kid was in trouble. I get talking to the kid, and I said, maybe if you want to come over and clean up after school at the shop and do a little hunting and fishing on the weekends when we go, I said, you'd be more than welcome. He said, yeah, I'd like to do that. And you know something? Brian was with me for 6 years. I saw how that boy's life got changed just like mine, just because he had a man in his life. Man, I couldn't believe it. I actually had an awesome friend, and I was able to help somebody, but I think he helped me more than I helped him. And so I went back to Thomas. I need another kid. This worked pretty good. And I want you to know I went through 7 other kids in a row. And I found that you can't lead them all to water and make them all drink. Some of them kids are on a path you'll never get them off. But it's in God's time. I can see that now. So the business is growing, and my dreams are starting to really unfold. And at the age of 19 years old, I also started powerlifting. I want you to know I didn't smoke or drink or carry on. I was so focused on business and the things I was doing, I needed to have an outlet. My outlet was going to the gym at 11:30 every day, and I'd go back to work at 1 o'clock. And that was my outlet, was to work out. But what I would do is I would go to a tournament once in a while just to push myself. And I want you to know in life, the only person you're really competing with on anything is yourself. And I found that out in all that I did. Well, in the first 5 years of it, I went to a tournament. And once in a while, you'd win first place. After 10 years of it, you're winning first place quite often. after 20 years of it, you're out there pushing that yourself and setting records. And beyond that, in drug-free competition, next thing you know, you're setting world records. And I want you to know what it was like for me to get a letter from the United States Powerlifting Association asking me to compete for the 242-pound class for the United States. I told my wife, so I'm going to hang this up on the wall. I said, I can't hardly believe it. But to be able to go there and compete and win and set world records was the most unbelievable thing that ever happened to me at that point. And it was, man, and the trophy room that you've seen there, I found it isn't how good you are, it's how persistent you are. If you are persistent at chasing your dreams, at one point you're going to do it right. And that's how it is. And I practiced and practiced all the time with archery equipment, and I didn't want to goof up on an animal. It wasn't that I wanted to beat people at shooting at things. I wanted to harvest my dreams. So at one time, my goals in life was to make all kinds of money, chase my dreams all over the world with a bow in my hand, and to set records in powerlifting that nobody could break. And you know, what was interesting, in all these things that I was after and going after and dwelling on, my focus wasn't really totally on things with my family as much, especially with my wife. And I remember one of the worst days I ever had in my life was a phone call I got about 8 o'clock in the morning from my sister-in-law telling me a few things I couldn't believe. And the next thing you know, I find out that these things are true, and that my wife has found greener pastures and wanted no longer to be my wife. And there was nothing I could do about it. And my marriage broke up. And everything I tried to do to keep it together, again, I couldn't do anything with it. All of a sudden, there I'm in the same situation as what went on with my dad. And I got all these kids. Now I have a broken home. So what ended up happening was I became Mr. Mom. All my children lived with me, and my business suffered. Everything I did suffered because I was so focused on the kids and keeping things with school going. Well, there's a lot of work that the other side of the parent does that most people don't know until they start doing it. So as things are going forward, I was never going to get married again. I wasn't going to get involved so I could get hurt anymore in my life. I had enough rejection since I was a kid. I didn't want nothing to do with it. And my daughter, CJ, Tammy, introduces me to her friend Stephanie, who Stephanie has got a mom named Karen. Dad, we got to take Stephanie and her mom. We're going to go to movies. Come on, we got to do this. I said, no, I don't want to do this. I don't have time for this. Well, next thing you know, we go to the movies. Right in the middle of the movie, there's a popcorn fight breaks out. And I can't believe it. I'm having a blast with my kid. And for the first time in a long time, I had a little joy. And this young lady, Karen, is totally different than anybody I ever met. I asked her to go to lunch with me, and then I asked her to go to dinner with me, and one day I got slapped in the face. That was pretty eye-opening. But, and I'll tell you what, you want to feel about this high, not having respect for the woman that you should have. But as things went forward, I caught myself asking her to marry me. And she turned around and said yes, which was the scariest thing that ever happened to me again. Ray, what did you just do? Boy, now you opened yourself up again. And the kids were at the point where they were just about out of school completely. So I married Karen. And I'll tell you what, all these things are continuing to happen with setting records and harvesting animals, and these companies are calling me up. Ray, we want you to be a part of our company. We want you to be on our pro staff. Ray, we want you to be an ambassador of our company. One of them was Gander Mountain, called me up and said, Ray, we want you to be a part of our company, and we want you to do different things with us with our grand openings. And I said, okay, sounds good. So what happened was, they'd call me up and say, Ray, we're going to do a ribbon cutting at a store, and we'd like to have you come to the store and cut the ribbon with an arrow instead of with the scissors. I want to tell you something. This is pretty eye-opening. I don't care how good you are with a bow or how good you think you are. When you got 300 to 600 people standing around you, I mean, it's unbelievable. And there's somebody who's going to heckle you all the time. I don't care. They're going to distract you and heckle you. I got stories of just amazing. So, Karen, for so many years, stuck with me on everything. I never met anybody like her. And one day, she says to me, she says, Ray, I came into your life to help save you. And I just about snapped. Are you kidding me? You have a house, you have cars, you got food on the table. Everything I got, I provided for you. What are you talking about? You're going to help save me. And you know, I knew something about Karen I didn't understand at the time. She loved the Lord more than she loved me. I was number 2 in her life. It was pretty eye-opening. Matter of fact, when I was a kid, my grandpa used to take us in the car and, with grandma and them and drive us to church, drop us off, and then come back after church and pick us up. That was a manly thing to do at church. And for me, I'd go to church with Karen just to listen to her sing. She's got a voice like an angel. And I love sitting with her and listening to her sing. Well, as the things are going forward, there was an event in Texas. And there was another man by the name of Pat Quinn who was chasing the same dreams I was chasing. He's chasing money. He's chasing all these critters. And there was about 5 guys that I connected with. If anybody's ever gone on a hunt before because an outfitter talked them into going on a hunt and it's a bum hunt, I didn't want to be on bum hunts anymore. These guys I work with, I'd call them up. If they'd been on that hunt, they'd tell you, hey, this is a good sheep hunt, this is a good moose hunt. And that's what I did. And my success rate was about 98%. Well, Pat Quinn was one of them guys, and we were at an event in Texas, and Pat is there, and Pat looks like a movie star. If you looked at Pat Quinn, you say, yep, that guy's a movie star. Well, I'm at this event, and Pat and Karen are talking and talking and talking. And I'm going to tell you something. I started getting a little green. I started getting a little swolled up. What are they talking about? And there's all these people around. And so about 45 minutes went by, and I had it. I mean, I was right there. I had it. Ready to snap. I walked right up to both of them. You got to see them. You got to see in their eyes when they looked at me. I said, they looked at me and I said, what in the world's going on here? And they both looked at me and said the exact same words at the same time. We're talking about your salvation. Now, I want you to know, I knew how to grab a hold of Pat by the collar and shake him up and say, stay away from my wife. I did not know how to take and handle what he said to me. I shook my head. I said, these people are nuts. I'm walking away from it. And I walked away, and I think it was 2 days later when I was at home, Karen says, Pat's on the phone. So I get on the phone with Pat. And Pat starts talking to me, and he says something to me that I've never heard before in my life. He said, Ray, you can have your own personal relationship with Jesus Christ. I've never heard this. I want you to know that Pat talked to me for about a half hour. And I know I only heard that. All the rest were kind of went in one ear and out the other. Well, going forward, I was in church one day with my wife. And it's Father's Day. And I want you to know that on Father's Day, I got to be a dad. And it was wonderful to be a dad. I'm sitting in church with my wife thinking about my dad, who I absolutely hated at the time. As a matter of fact, if I would have seen my dad on the streets when I was younger, it probably would not have been good. Those other kids got to have my dad for a dad, and I didn't even get to spend time with them. So I'm sitting in church and I'm thinking to myself, gosh, things didn't turn out to be so bad. I don't want to change who I am. Not that I'm proud, I wouldn't want to change who I am. And you know something? I thought, if those things wouldn't have happened the way they did, I wouldn't be who I am. And at that moment, I forgave my dad for all the things that he did to my brothers and sisters and me. And I want you to know, I uncontrollably started crying. A grown man crying. And my wife looks at me and says, what's the matter? I said, I forgave my dad. I did not know how much hatred I had built up inside me for my dad and how much weight that was on my shoulders until that moment. I walked out of that church, I was a different person. And, going forward, a series of events that had happened during that week. Started thinking about what Pat had talked to me about different times. Well, I had to get ready for ribbon cutting at Gander Mountain. And you know, the ribbon cutting, as a safety part, you can only be about 20 yards back. Anything farther than that, there's too many people. There's too much going on. Well, I always make sure that I've got a lot of confidence when I go to these things, so I always shoot long distance to make me a good short distance shooter. Anybody that shoots archery or any other type of thing, if you could hit a long shot, you got your confidence hitting a short shot. I did a lot of videos and stuff where I was shooting 35 millimeter film canisters or pop cans at 100 yards. Well, this day, I went out there and I put 5 ribbons on the target. And I thought, I'm going to use my 100-yard pin and see if I can cut them ribbons. And so I went back and stood at 100 yards, and I come back with my bow. I took the top of my 100-yard pin. If anybody wants to know how to hit small objects at long distance, just ask me later and I'll tell you. I took the top of my 100-yard pin, I touched it on the bottom of that ribbon, and I released that arrow, and in a blink of an eye, that ribbon cut. I couldn't believe it. I cut a ribbon at 100 yards. And so I do another arrow, and I'm going to tell you something. I cut all 5 ribbons in a row. Humanly impossible to do. And I told myself, Ray, that is the dumbest thing you've ever done. I didn't have a cameraman with me. Nobody will ever believe this is true. And so, I mean, I'm all swole up. I cannot believe it. I'm only going to be 21 yards in front of a ribbon in the weekend. And I'm going to have all these people there, and I'm going to look great. I walk up to that target, no kidding. All the ribbons are laying to the side, and the arrows are in there just like that. 5 of them. Wow. And I'm thinking, oh, this comes into my head. Gosh, God had to be guiding me with arrows because there's no way I could have done this. And so I reached over and I started pulling them arrows out. And what Pat Quinn said to me came into my head about having my own personal relationship with Jesus Christ. And you know something? The part of God guiding my arrows, I get down to the last arrow and I pull that arrow out and I'm thinking about I wouldn't want to change who I am. And all these things that had happened to me in my life happened for a purpose. And that God had been guiding my arrows since I was 5 years old. Since the day my dad left, all the things that went on in my life, all these things that were upside down that the Lord let happen in my life happened for a purpose. And I'm thinking to myself, man, my head is really spinning. And I think, oh, I'm going to do this again. This is incredible. So I put 5 more ribbons up on the target, and I'm going to shoot it again. And so I turn around and I start walking back. And I'm not kidding you, I got about a 50-yard marker. And I'm thinking about this stuff, thinking about it. There's no more about shooting a bow or cutting a ribbon. I'm thinking about this. And all of a sudden it was just like somebody hit me in the back with a club. And I want you all to know, I went to my knees with a bow in one hand and the arrows in the other. Those were part of my gods at one time. And I raised them up. And I said, from now on, this is no longer my glory, it's to yours. And at that moment, I asked God to forgive me for all the things that I had done wrong. And I asked Him to start guiding my life. And I want to tell you something. In the next few minutes, I had more wisdom come in my head than I've ever had before in my life. He told me I've only got this much time left on this earth. And as I was told that, it opened up to me that you don't know if you're going to walk out the door and be in an accident. You don't know if you're going to have some disease like my grandpa. You don't know if you're going to have something go on that you can't think straight anymore. You don't know if you got 5 minutes or the next day. And then it really opened up to me that my trophy room is bigger than this room and much higher, and it's completely filled with critters that I chase with my dream. And so I just knew that the day I died, all those animals were going to be on somebody else's wall, and my name wasn't going to be on them. So, what did I achieve there? Nothing. All the money I had in the bank. I want you to know, when you got money in the bank, everybody's fighting over your money. You don't know who your friends are. Everybody is focused on your money. I know the day I die, I couldn't take it with me. So what did I accomplish there? The records that I set in powerlifting, the sport that I love so much. I want you to know, right now today, those records that I had set are broken. And I knew it at that time. Someday somebody had a little better day than me, a little better technique was going to break my record. So my name's not even in a record book. So what did I achieve there? Nothing. So the next few minutes were probably the biggest few minutes of my life. I had to tell my wife what I was going to do. I walked up to Karen and said, Karen, I gave my heart to the Lord today. I'm not going back to my business the way I did. I don't care if I harvest another animal with my bow. I don't care if I set another record in powerlifting. God's called me to a ministry. That ministry is going to let as many kids know, no matter what their problems are in life, that God has got a purpose for them, and He's going to guide their arrows just like He has mine. And you know, my wife looked at me, and she said, Ray, you do what you think is best, and I'm sticking with you. And that day, I started having Bible studies with my wife. The most powerful thing that has gone on in my life is to have Bible studies with my wife. And you know, as I'm having Bible studies with my wife, the ministry of Kicking Bear started. And we started traveling, going to different places and putting on these events. And witnessing what God does with this ministry is awesome. And these storms that come into my life, all of a sudden, I no longer am standing by myself. We have Christ in the middle of our marriage, and I have a warrior bride. I have somebody that's standing next to me, fighting with me, holding the shield up to keep the flaming arrows off me, not somebody when the troubles come, they run out the door. Ray, this is happening. Let's pray about it. Let's pray about it. I don't care how much of a man I am. And she looks at me and says, let's pray about it. Boy, I'll tell you what. Having Christ in the middle of your marriage is awesome. And then I realized that this ring I have on, it's not a wedding ring. It's a symbol of a gift that God gave me. He gave me my wife, Karen. So as we're going forward, there's storms. There's a lot of things that happen and things that are going on. And I find I was kind of, I don't know if I want to call it sheepish, or it felt a little different to go to a Bible study with men. I want to tell you, in all the things that I went after as a human being, the toughest men I know are men that love the Lord. I'm in Bible study with these men, and the enemy is there, and he is there to distract us and tear us apart. He wants, that pipsqueak wants nothing better than to tear our families apart and to keep our heads turned sideways. And when you're with other men and you're in study with them, and these men really got your back. They don't care about your money. They care about your soul. They care about who you are and being a disciple. And you know, that moment that I gave my heart to the Lord, my life changed. I had a new job. And it's the only job that we are to have. Be disciples to make disciples. And that's what I've done going forward. In the ministry of Kicking Bear is now in its 17th year. So, when I walked away from the business and walked away from the things I was doing, nothing went smooth. The enemy did everything he could to distract me from what my calling was. Matter of fact, I lost 95% of my friends that day I gave my heart to the Lord. Isn't that amazing that when you follow Christ, how many people look at you different? And I'm going to tell you what, you men that shine the Lord's light, the spiritual leaders in your family, you are different. But that's what God has called us to do, be disciples to make disciples. So, going forward, as a matter of fact, I brought a short film, and I wanted to show that film. I am not smart enough, I am physically not strong enough or able to pull off these things that I witness. When we put on a Kicking Bear event, those events are normally an average of about 600 people, and not one person pays a dime to be there. How can that be? They're all fed. We have the absolute best time of our life. And it's kind of like a few loaves of bread and a few fish. I get to witness God's victory every weekend that we do this. So could you show that 1 minute film here? This is pretty cool what we do.
faith-based youth program that encourages sportsmen and women to get involved with today's youth. The campouts, sheets, and other events are a great way to introduce youth to God's great outdoors and to the sport of archery. All kicking their events are provided free of charge to everyone who wishes to participate. The program's mission is to help underprivileged and at-risk youth, or any youth, to have an opportunity to get into the outdoors by encouraging others to reach outside their homes. Kicking Bear promotes mentoring for kids who might not otherwise have the opportunity to hunt, fish, or shoot archery. Putting a bow in their hands and a trim in their hearts, Kicking Bear helps change kids' lives forever.
Yes, I feel blessed that at the moment I gave my heart to the Lord, that God had a calling for me, and I knew what the calling was. I had no idea how I was going to make a living. I had no idea how all this was going to come about or how it was going to work. I just trusted in the Lord. You know, Joshua, when he crossed the Jordan River, their war cry was Rock Kajak. It means Spirit of God. And today when we walk out them doors, we're walking out into hostile territory. You know, we got to have our own war cry. We got to stick together. And I kind of like to just take a moment and, you know, Karen prayed for me for 9.5 years before I gave my heart to the Lord and my life changed. And I'd like to introduce, I get to be with her today. And I'd like to introduce my wife to you. Karen, could you come up here, please? Remember, I told you about when I was 13, 14 years old? I prayed to a God that I didn't know. I asked him to put somebody in my life that no matter what goes on, no matter what the troubles are, that you never leave me. Look at this right here. You know, being in Bible study with your wife is the most powerful thing that you can do. All the little things that go on in life that are distractions and cause trouble, they're finally gone, and you're ready for the big things. And God put it in my heart in a sermon. He put the words through me that the worst is yet to come in our lives. The worst is yet to come in our lives. Do you know that in this country, and who knows what's going to go on next or what's going to happen 5 minutes after we walk out this door? He put it on my heart that the most important thing we could do is be a spiritual leader in our family and to make sure that our children and our grandchildren have a personal relationship with Jesus Christ. God's promise is eternity in heaven. And that'll be with our children and our grandchildren and our great-grandchildren. Because we really have no control when they're out of our hands. And that's the truth of it. So, going forward in today, each and every one of us are going to be kneeling down, and Jesus is going to judge us. He's going to say, man, you're a great person. You're a wonderful man. But why didn't you give your heart to me? And this will happen. And I want to tell you something. You're going to look at him and say, yeah, one day, this guy with a big mustache that did a lot of hunting and did some weightlifting and had a beautiful wife stood up there. And I thought about giving my heart to the Lord, but I decided that I was just going to wait for a little while longer. I didn't know I was going to walk out the door and get hit by a car. Don't think that that can't happen. I want you to know right here and now, everything that I've told you is the truth. Everything that is in this book is the truth, and it's alive. It's guided my life for the last 17 years. And you know, having a spiritual marriage and have a warrior bride, and I am so blessed. And you are ready for the big things that come at you, because we had some big things come at us that were bad, that the enemy did. But I got it right here. And we're together. And when he calls me home, I want you to know I'm going to keep fighting this battle as a warrior for Christ until he calls me home. So, when you look Jesus in the eye and say, I thought about doing it, but I just didn't want to surrender as a man. I thought I could handle it all by myself. I'm going to tell you, there's only two ways you're going to go. And if there's anybody here that God has brought here, I want you to know, if you're here and he brought you here, he maybe brought you here for this very purpose. Today's the new day. The day I gave my heart to the Lord, my life changed. It changed right now. You're going to lose a lot of friends. Things are going to be different. But you're going to know the truth, and you're going to have great wisdom and understanding going forward. So I brought a Prayer of Salvation poem card. And I'm going to ask my wife to say this prayer. And what I'll probably ask you to do is, if anybody would like to do this, Karen will read the first sentence and then we'll repeat it. She'll read the second sentence and then we'll repeat it. And anybody that wants to give their heart to the Lord, just follow me in prayer. And then there's other men of God that are right here, spiritual men, that I'd like to have stand up once we've done this. And if anybody has given their heart to the Lord or needs somebody to talk to, and I'm here, and so is my wife, please talk to us about it. So let's bow our heads. Let's go ahead, honey.
Okay. Got to turn this on. It's on? Okay. You can hear me? All right. Jesus, you died upon a cross.
Jesus, you died upon the cross.
And rose again to save the lost.
And rose again to save the lost.
Forgive me now of all my sin.
Forgive me now of all my sin.
Come be my Savior, Lord and friend.
Come be my Savior, Lord and friend.
Change my life and make it new.
Change my life and make it new.
And help me, Lord, to live for you.
And help me, Lord, to live for you.
Amen.
Amen. Anybody that said that prayer, I have these cards here, but I want you to know, if you said that prayer in your heart, eternity is yours in the kingdom of heaven. There's no more sickness, no more cancer like I talked about, no more divorce, no more garbage that we have to go through while we're here on earth. And I want you to know that being in Bible studies with other men, and especially with your wife, will strengthen your life beyond what you could even imagine. And you'll need that strength to get through what we're going to go through. And as a spiritual leader in your family, there's stuff that's going to come at you that, how do you handle it? And you're just going to have to kneel down and ask God to get you through it. And 2 years ago, I'll leave you with this. This is being a spiritual leader and what the Spirit of God in you can do. I'm standing next to Karen like this and her phone goes off. And she's got a great big smile on her face. Oh, look, Ray, we got a new grandchild, Oliver. What? I didn't even know we were ready to have one yet. Well, the baby's early. So, wow, we got a grandchild named Oliver. This is awesome. And the phone went off again. This one was Oliver passed away. I'm getting ready to go to the hospital to go have a joyous occasion with my kids because we got a new member of our family. Now I'm going there as a disciple of Jesus Christ to be the spiritual leader in the family. And I'm going to tell you something. That's tough. I was tough. I drove all the way to the hospital. God, what do I say? What do I say to my children? What do I say? And I get there, and there's Oliver. And he's just ashes and dust. Lifeless. My girl's holding on to him, and this is what let me hold him. I put him in my arms. And God put the words through me. Oliver doesn't have to go through what we're going through here on this earth. Oliver's already in the kingdom of heaven. He's there waiting for me. And I want you to know that that's the truth of it. We're here to do what God has called us to do. Be disciples, to make disciples. And we need the strength of God and our brothers to get us through this. And we need the blessing of the gift of marriage. And you men who are not in Bible study with your wives, I'm telling you, you don't know me, but within 3 months your life is going to change. Your wife will be the most beautiful woman you have ever seen in your life. I'm not saying that because she's standing here. I'm going to tell you, nobody comes close to her. And when you look your wife in the eyes and you can see Jesus, it's the most amazing thing you'll ever imagine. So I'll leave you with that. Thank you very, very much for letting us come. I have these cards here, but is there other men of God who would stand up here? Please stand up, that if anybody's made a decision for Christ, to talk to these other men that have said that prayer in their heart. Please stand up. And I'm here. Okay. Okay. I probably went a little over. I'm sorry. Love you, man.